joining us tonight. You can find all of our 2,500 stadium reviews, news items, and other feature stories on our website, stadiumjourney.com. And connect with us on all of our social media channels at Stadium Journey. Like, comment, and share across all of our channels. You can find audio versions of the Stadium Journey podcast by searching HIAC Talk Radio Network on whatever podcast app you use. Or check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Apple Music now. I think we're there too, or somewhere new. I think it was Apple. But yeah, we're all over the damn place. And video simulcasts of our podcast can be found on Stadium Journey's YouTube page. And if you want to check out our classic back catalog, that can still be found at vocnation.com. And some of you are there now, but for those of you watching us at a later time, we record live every other Tuesday night at 8 Eastern at twitch.tv/danlaw83. Hey, thanks to those of you who are in our live studio audience right now. And now, here's our starting lineup. Dave Cotney is here with us tonight. You can follow him at ProFan9. Mark Viquez is here. Follow him at Ballpark Hunter. The other guy, Dan Calachico, is here. Well, he's not physically here, but he's here. You can follow him at DanLaw83. And I'm Paul Baker. You can follow me at PuckmanRI. And tonight, we are very happy to be closing out the minor league baseball season with Michael Harris, who is a most seasoned, and as he puts it on his Twitter bio, ballpark collector. I like that, ballpark collector. And, minor league baseball enthusiast. Mike, your current count, if your Twitter is accurate, is 423 ballparks. And if you want to check out Michael's journeys, you can find his work on the website intheballparks.com. Mike, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, so Mike, you're from the great state of Maine, so we'll try not to talk too much about New England tonight, but how do you get from that corner of the country to 400 plus ballparks? That takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm slowly is the answer. But I mean, Paul, because you all are also from New England, we are lucky to have a lot of ballparks in our area. We're also lucky to have, or at least up until last year, we had the Red Sox plus 3 affiliated Red Sox minor league teams. So I kind of started just by going to a lot of Red Sox games, a lot of Sea Dogs games, a lot of Spinners games, and Paw Sox games. And then kind of all at once, like 2 things happened. One is my sister moved to Connecticut, and I realized I could see the Sea Dogs play in Norwich. And then I realized I could see the Sea Dogs play in other places, like Manchester. I could see the Spinners play in Vermont. And then I was like, I should see the other 2 Red Sox minor league teams down in Virginia and South Carolina. And so I did a road trip based around that, where I also saw the Sea Dogs play in Trenton, and I saw a Pirates game. And after that, I was kind of just out the door, and slowly but surely have expanded how many ballparks I've been to.
So as a ballpark collector, I love that term. I may start using that now. How has your 2021 season been as far as getting out there after having 2020 off?
Different. It's been, I didn't know what I was going to be able to do. It's different in a couple ways, partially because I've been to a bunch of ballparks so far, and so I'm kind of limited in what I have left to that I haven't been to. So a lot of the times when I was first, starting out, I would go to, I just pick an area. You guys were in North Carolina recently. There's a lot of there's a lot of parks to see in that area. So I'd just pull up North Carolina and pick a bunch of parks. And if I missed some, I'll catch them the next time I get down that area. Now it's a lot of places that are further away and parks that have opened since the last time I was in an area. So it's a lot of single parks in one area and then on to the next. So I ended up doing 2 driving trips, one down to the southeast and hit Kannapolis and Fredericksburg and Rocket City and that area. And then I did one normally, once I get past a certain range, like at first I was doing day trips that I could do back and forth in a day. And as somebody who likes driving, my range is longer than some other people's. So that was 5 or 6 hours from my house was a day trip.
Wow.
Then it became things I could do on an easy week-long drive. I would do, New York, Western New York, and Ohio and Pennsylvania. For the last couple of years, I've been flying to areas that are further away. And this year, I was hesitant to get on an airplane. So there was a lot of driving. So I ended up with a 2-week-long driving trip that took me out to Chicago and Milwaukee, down through Nebraska into Texas, and back up through Iowa and home. So I had planned a trip. I'd hoped to get out to Oregon to see the last 2 minor league parks I haven't been to, but where cases started going up, I nixed the airplane travel for this year.
So how's it been different for you this year when like actually getting into the park? And what would constitute a park for you? Like, is it just, I drive by one and I stop and get out and take a couple pictures, or do you have to go to a game, or like a full game, 9 innings, 1 inning?
So that's a good question, because when I first started like looking up like what ballparks are out there for me to go to and finding sites of people who have done similar stuff, some people do just like drive by and see the ballpark. And so on my first couple of like longer trips, I would do that. I would stop at like a site that there wasn't a game going on, the team was out of town or whatever, and take a look at the ballpark. And it was cool, but it didn't give me that feeling that I get when I'm able to like really explore the ballpark and see a game. So I only count, my total is games that I have been to. Has to be a game, has to be an official game. So it doesn't have to be 9 innings, but it has to get through 5 innings or 4.5 if the home team is leading. So that's what I count as a game. So anything that I count in my like 423 or 325 professional totals is a game. Occasionally I have to leave early if I have 2 games scheduled on the same day, or if I have to catch a plane or something like that. But as long as I'm past the point where it's an official game, I count it.
And how's it been different in the parks this year versus?
I mean, it's honestly, it's dependent on where you go and when.
Exactly.
Some parks it's incredibly restricted in what you could do and where you could go. You have to be masked everywhere. A lot of parks, honestly, as the summer went on, it didn't seem like there was much of a difference at all. So it really depends. I was kind of wondering if you would see more of those restrictions, and I think as the summer went on, it really, other than the staff wearing masks, there wasn't as much of a difference as I might have expected or hoped in some cases.
Yeah, I didn't really see a lot of differences this year as well. Last year I did. When I went to the Lemonade League in Lansing, 100 people only sitting in the outfield area. I didn't notice anything this year. It felt like business as usual, which is odd because, we're still not out of this pandemic. But I guess my question for you is, I just lost it. Just lost the question. Obviously, minor league baseball, when you have this count, do you also include collegiate stadiums? Do you include independent? Have you been up to Minnesota to see the town ballparks? Is it any baseball game that's taken place that you count?
So it depends on the count. So my count is 325 professional games. And for me, that counts that, or professional ballparks, plenty more games, but 325 professional ballparks. That counts for me, major league, minor league, independent, at all levels. I count down to, I've counted Pecos Spring League and California Winter League in that
Pecos. Wow.
And
that's all right. I've got an Empire Pro League ballpark in my professional count, so
I've got every single one they've ever used in mine. So
Pecos League, that's like scraping the barrel.
Oh wait, I've been to 3
bottom of the
Empire
barrel
leagues. Yeah.
So
Ooh.
yeah, I count the Empire League and the Pecos League and
Yeah.
as pro parks, and then the 423 counts Summer College League and Division One. So
Okay.
I think it's like 50, it's about 50-50 on Summer College League and Division One for the rest of the parks that make up that total. As far as town ball, that's on my list of a bucket list of something I'd like to do.
Oh.
But the trip that I got through Minnesota, I was driving like all over the place to get to South Dakota, North Dakota, Winnipeg, and so I didn't have time to stop for town ball.
It's almost like you need a week in Minnesota and to map out where you go. Like I'm with you there. It's like there's so much to do there. It's overload. Because when I went out there, I had to go to a Lynx game to review, and I had to go St. Paul Saints, and I had to go to Minnesota United, and it's like I just want to get out to Meesville or Red Wing or Winona to see a game, and it's I tell you, just let me go up to Minnesota for a week or two and just enjoy all those beautiful ballparks they have up there. And I definitely recommend Meesville or Chaska if you ever get up there.
Absolutely. Now, there's so much to see, and there's so much I want to see. I prioritize professional games, and then I'll fill in with college or summer league, depending on the season. And then as we go, as I'm running out of professional ballparks to see, I'll start filling in with more of that stuff.
So outside of the, I don't even know if I'm prepared to say post-pandemic, current pandemic, outside of the mess that we're in now and how that's changed everything, probably the biggest change in minor league baseball has been the purge, where we saw all those rookie league teams, unaffiliated and a few others unaffiliated. And I think it's fair to say that certain pockets kind of lost their minds, and this was a big freak out major league deal. What are your thoughts on the purge, and how have you seen it? Have you seen any changes as a result of said purge, or have you been to any of the spots this year that were former affiliated spots that are no longer?
I haven't this year because I had been to almost all of those parks already. I had been to, of the 42 parks that got de-affiliated, the only one I haven't been to is Salem Kaiser. So I had done the Appalachian League, I had done the Pioneer League already. It's tough because the Appalachian League and the Pioneer League were some of my favorite places to see a ball game. Like the Appy League is a bunch of little ballparks in small towns that look way too small to have a professional baseball team, and apparently were. And it's just it's a much different vibe than a AAA baseball game. And the Pioneer League, you get amazing scenery, and just the drives between the ballparks is as nice as the parks themselves. So I feel sad that those parks are no longer affiliated minors, just because for some people, and I've seen that with places up here, I've seen that with when you lose the affiliation, you lose a chunk of the fans. There's a group of fans that just, I mean, Paul knows Norwich. When that went from AA to short season, you lost a chunk of the fans because they thought it wasn't important enough.
And then when they went from single A to
Indy,
and then Trenton, look what's going on there.
Yeah, you lose a chunk of the thing. So that's my worry, is that you lose a group of fans every time you drop a level. And I think they've done it, like, it's from everything I saw, like the Pioneer League did a good job this year. The Appy League did a good job this year. A lot of the teams that got de-affiliated and joined summer college leagues, like they've seemed to do well. But I do worry that you're leaving huge chunks of the country without affiliated baseball. Every little bit that you don't bring people into the ballpark, I get sad that maybe some of those people don't become baseball fans or as big of a baseball fan.
All right. We've got, circling back to the mask comment, we got our friend Gregory is in the chat room. He's got a couple questions for you. First, he wants to tell us about when he was in Lancaster last weekend. He said they had signs saying that you had to wear masks in the bathroom unless you were eating and drinking while sitting down. So, so it's good to know. He says it's good to know that you can do that in the bathroom. But
Lancaster.
Mike, did you go to any Sea Dogs games earlier this year? Because I went up for Mother's Day, and the restrictions they had in place were just incredible. You were mentioning how it seemed like it was pretty much like normal, but man, at the beginning of the season, at least in the Northeast, was not normal.
No, I didn't go when all the restrictions were in place. I've been fairly cautious, and at that time it didn't make as much sense to me to go to a game. So I didn't go until they've opened up. I went to a Sea Dogs game last week, and other than the fact that they're still doing ordering from your seat, you wouldn't know that anything is different now. So things have definitely changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a question from our friend Gregory here. He wants to know, what is the most obscure baseball stadium you've been to?
Oh,
I don't know what he means by obscure, but we'll define
yeah,
that
it depends on what metric you're using. I would say, I would say the Pecos Spring League is probably stretching the definition of professional ballpark that anyone has heard of. The Pecos League in general most people don't know about the Pecos League.
No.
And there are some very cool ballparks in the Pecos League, I will say, like Trinidad and Santa Fe and
Triggers.
Yeah, there are some really nice Alpine. Alpine is high up on my favorite ballpark list. But Pecos Off-Season Winter League in a makeshift ballpark in the suburb in Houston, where the outfield fence is slapped together, old pieces of the Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati just slapped together to make an outfield fence, is probably the most obscure I've been to.
You want to answer that question, Mark?
Oh, most obscure. I know. I know we had a Bart from our. This is a ballpark I never even heard of. Up in Wisconsin, there's Snowshoe Baseball, and where the field is laid out with sawdust, and you play with snowshoes, and the players don't have any gloves, so you try to catch sort of like a mush ball, and they serve pies at the game. I know Bart was up there and a couple other people that I follow on Facebook. So I looked it up online, and there's a couple videos on it on YouTube. Now I want to go to a game. I definitely want to hit that. It's a few hours north of Madison, Wisconsin. So, that seems very obscure to me, especially since I was unaware of this place up until a few years ago. I mean, up until a few weeks ago. So, yeah.
And Gregory was also asking if Lake of the Woods has a town ball team. He says that would be a fun one if you could possibly get there, because the only way to get to Lake of the Woods is by boat.
Oh, Lake of the Woods up in Canada. No, they don't have.
Isn't that the part of Minnesota with that little square that's
that?
Yeah, you have to go
knob
through Canada or through the water.
Yeah. No. Well, if there's a ballpark there, that'd be very obscure.
All right, Mike, did I hear you correctly that when you said that you only have 2 affiliated ballparks left out of the 120?
Wow, it's impressive.
I do. I have 2 major league parks I haven't been to. 2, I've done 117 out of 119 of the current MILB. I have I've been to all the spring training ballparks, and then so I have I think 6 Pecos League parks, Salem Kaiser, and the 2 minor and 2 major leagues before I've done all the pro parks in the US and Canada.
Wow.
I was hoping to get it done last year, and then last year happened, and then I was hoping to get it done this year, and I had to scrap the West Coast part of it.
So how many ballparks do you get to on an average per year? Is it every weekend? Is it a week trip, take a week off? How does that work?
It's generally, the way it's been is about a trip a month, April through August, which is generally about a week per trip. And then a bunch of summer college league or college day trips that I can, because like I said, I prioritize the pro park, so I'm still in the range of day trips with summer college league and college.
Let's talk summer. Let's talk summer league because we're spoiled in New England. We've got 3 fantastic leagues. Which have you been to a lot of the New England ones?
So I've been to all the New England Summer College League parks. I've been to every park in the Futures League, the NECBL, and the Cape League. If you want to talk obscure, I've also been to all the parks that the Greater Northeast Collegiate Baseball League uses in Maine, and at least a chunk of the ones that the Connecticut Collegiate Baseball League uses.
I thought you were going to talk about the Cranberry League in Boston.
No, I haven't. I haven't
Not yet.
That to that level yet, but I have recently discovered the low-level summer college league teams in New England, the Greater Northeast League and the Connecticut League.
I need to look into those because I've run out of new ballparks in this area too. So,
well, if you want to see some really weird little ones, I went to the obscure ballpark might be School Street Field in Agawam, Massachusetts. For a Connecticut Collegiate League game this year, they don't have an outfield fence. So the ball you hit the ball and you just run until the outfielder gets the ball and you're either out or you score.
That's the way my high school did it back in the day.
Yeah. So that was a fun one if you're looking for someplace to go in New England.
Okay, so it's been said here before, baseball snob right here. So we're in a little bit different situation now, and I have had to expand my horizons just a bit. But being a baseball snob, kind of anything below AAA was, So, do your best. Sell me. Why should I, as a baseball snob, be interested in anything below AAA?
So I listened to this show, and I've been thrilled the last couple episodes to hear you discovering the Intercounty Baseball League, because that, like, I love that style, like small town ballpark. Like, I love a major league park. I love a AAA park. There's so much cool stuff in the higher level ballparks, but it's a different experience on some of those low level parks. And a lot of those, what you're going to in the Intercounty League is very similar. A lot of them were, or at least a few of them were, Penn League parks at one point. And like that feels a lot to me like the old Penn League or the Appy League or Pioneer League or something like that. So you're getting up close to the action. It's a more, I don't want to say, saying pure baseball experience sounds so like condescending and like, but it's a different, you don't have the sound effects, you don't have the MCs and the between inning games and the $15 specialty hot dog and the like all of
$10 beers,
the bells and whistles and the it's, you can just go to a baseball game and watch a baseball game. You'll hear a bunch of parents in the crowd that are housing players for the summer. You'll hear people who have been to every game and are heckling individual players based on stats or single events that they've run into. To me, it's a different experience, but one I enjoy just as much as going to a big league game.
So on a random night, would you just pick up and find a local ball field and watch some of the kids play, or?
I haven't got to that level yet. So there's a certain level of baseball snob in all of us, I think.
See, I guess I can blame my son for now playing travel baseball where, well, we haven't exactly traveled anywhere, but
right.
I'm at baseball 4 nights a week now.
So yeah, I mean, there's also a certain level of creepiness of just showing up to children's baseball games that I don't want to get into, but but I will. I mean, I haven't got into Division II or Division III college parks. I haven't gotten into anything below that. Partially because, and this might shock you, considering the conversation we've had so far. I'm a bit of a completist, and I get
I'm
into
shocked. Not at all.
I know. And so I'll get a list of things and I'm like, ooh, I can go there and there and there and there. And I want to go all these places. So give me a list of places to go. And my first instinct is, how can I get to all of them? So it took me a while to pick up college ball, partially because, the baseball snob in me had issue with the metal bats. But then there are a couple of cool college parks, like you go to Yale Field, like that's a cool place to see a ball game. So I eventually knocked down that barrier and have now gone to like 20% of the current Division One ballparks. So
have you been to the World Series?
That's interesting that you would say that, because one of the things that I thought was
good times
great was when ESPN was doing one year, they were promoting the College World Series, and I think their tagline was, "It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that ping." And I mean, for me, that sort of like, that'd be interesting to watch. But sorry for cutting you guys off there.
Well, speaking of College World Series, it got me thinking about the Little League World Series, and they just built, I think, the Central or Mid-State Regional Field about 10, 15 miles away from me. I was going to go to a game, but going back to how things are different this year with COVID, I just remembered you couldn't just buy a ticket there. You had to be one of the kids' family members to go to this stadium. And I didn't even think about trying to get a press pass or anything, because I thought I could just buy a ticket, go watch the game. So I was actually denied going into the stadium this year because I was not somebody's father. So getting back to how are things different, that's the one thing I would say was different this year. So
a lot of college, a lot of NCAA, almost all that were allowing fans at all in New England were family only. And I know that's different than in other parts of the country, because I was sitting there in March and April watching people in other parts of the country go to college baseball games, and there wasn't anything in New England, New York, or New Jersey that I was allowed into until the very last weekend of the season.
Yeah. And I think Louisville also prohibited people from coming in so much that their coach complained about it. He's like, we have nobody here watching our games. I mean, why? Whereas the Louisville Bats, I don't think had any, they might have had something, but fascinating to think that March and April, where you're craving to see a baseball game and you may be living in some of the ugliest weather at that time, but you want to get out there and see something and you can't go. And, any other year, they'd be begging somebody to come watch their games. So,
and then in June, it was like a switch was flipped and then all restrictions were off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, but like looking at junior hockey games coming up where they're like, there's 1,000 tickets available and here's the order, starting with the billets and the family members going to the sponsors and like down to the season ticket holders. And it's like, wait a second. There's no way I'm going to see this. I don't even come on the list.
Stadium Journey, Canadian correspondence. Where do they list?
We're on the fourth page on the back in the small print. So, Mike, let's talk about with your wealth of experience, some of your favorite places. Oh, wait, actually, before we get into that, I want a question for you. You were talking about being a completist. So you've got a choice. Go to a ballpark you've already been to that's close to where you are, or go to one that's not convenient to get to, but it's new. What do you do?
I mean, that's not even a question. I will drive 6 hours to a ballpark I've never been to before I go. You were saying did I go to Sea Dogs games earlier in the season? And my answer is no. I almost never go to Sea Dogs games before August, because I go to college games in the spring and then summer league games in the summer, and then I'll get to Sea Dogs games and Woo Sox games at the end of the year, because I could have gone to a bunch of Sea Dogs games this year. I was driving 5 or 6 hours to Perfect Game Collegiate League in Glens Falls and Amsterdam instead. So,
Hey, Glens Falls was horrible, but Amsterdam is one of my favorite places.
Amsterdam's beautiful. So,
all right, so some of your favorite places. Let's talk about some really great experiences you've had.
I hate that question because I'm too positive a person when it comes to going to a ballpark. Like, I enjoy it no matter what. Like,
even an ugly ballpark is
even
wonderful.
in ugly ballparks. I know Dan's not here at the moment, but I even kind of enjoyed Fitzner. Like,
good thing
He's
Dan's
back.
not here.
Wait a minute, Dan's been texting me all through the show.
Maybe I'll signal him by but it's like just to get to see a game, and there's something to being in a weird, ugly ballpark. I love seeing anything different is fun for me. Like, I know people complain a ton about the Diamond in Richmond, and I get that it's a horrifically outdated ballpark, but I kind of love it because it's the only thing left of that era of
that kind.
Yeah, there's nothing left. There's a ton of like WPA era covered grandstands that are kicking around in summer college ball, and there's a ton of new mini Camden Yards, but that era of like 70s ballpark construction has disappeared. And I get that I would probably feel differently if I lived in Richmond and had to go there every week, but I kind of love that it's still there and looks like a big giant alien spaceship just landed. So, but I mean, I love old ballparks. I did the Rickwood Classic is one of those things that I think everybody should see.
Yes, they should. I agree with you.
Closer to Mark, Bossy Field in Evansville is the same. I sat through like a 3+ hour rain delay where I had like a 4-hour drive after the game, and I didn't care at all because I was just wandering around that ballpark and looking at every old piece of history and sitting in different seats and thinking how cool this was. So, I mean, I love every ballpark, and that sounds silly and trite, and it's true, and I'm happy when I'm even at the dumpiest ballpark.
So have you found with all of these travels then, and all of these different ballparks that you're going to, have you found yourself like detached at all? Like sometimes I find that it's, when you start doing many different things, boom, 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 it's tough to be a fan anymore. And you're just sort of like, like as a fan, usually we say, like, this is my team. But the more I'm, the more I'm looking at the score for updates on my team's game, the more detached I am. Right. So do you find that detachment at all from your own team, whoever they are?
I think there is some of that. I try to cheer for the home team at whatever ballpark I'm at, except and unless the visiting team is a Red Sox affiliated team or the home team is a Yankees affiliated team, which I cannot bring myself to cheer for the home team. And I apologize to all the people at the time in Charleston, South Carolina, and in Trenton, and that I, would not cheer for your home team. But otherwise, I do try to cheer for the home team because I feel like that gives me like a little bit of a connection to a game. And I try to get to a ballpark early, like when the gates open, and spend an hour or so walking around and do my exploring then. And then once the first pitch starts, I'm in my seat and I'm focused on the game. Like, I don't get up and wander during the game. And I know a lot of people do, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's cool to see a game from a bunch of different perspectives.
I wander all the time.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people
I don't sit still.
For me, I kind of have to, once the game starts, I'm in my seat, I'm focused. I keep score as a memento for myself, as like a record of the places I've been. So I feel like that keeps me a little bit like focused in a way that like otherwise it's easy to get detached and you're just in a ballpark. And how is it different from the one you were in 3 days ago?
Yeah, Mark's been to like 800 ballparks and never seen a baseball game.
No, I almost missed a no-hitter in Burlington, Iowa one time. Because I was just walking around hanging out by the bar. I was with a buddy of mine and some of his friends. And I look at the scoreboard, and it's going in the ninth inning, no runs, no hits for the road team. I'm like, am I drunk or so? Almost
Millennials.
it was. So I was able to watch it. It got broken up, unfortunately, and
So you jinxed it.
almost saw no hitter. No, yeah, maybe if I wasn't paying attention. I know their PR guy was standing in a very awkward place on the concourse, and he told me after, he's like, "Yeah, I wasn't moving. I was superstitious, so I hear you." But I guess one question I had, when you read our stadium journey reviews, do you get any advice from what we tell you in the stories? Do you disagree with anything we say?
I mean, sure. There's always going to be disagreements, but yeah, definitely. Because I don't want to spend the whole game like wandering around trying to find the best place, like the best perspective or the best concession item or whatever. I love that I can look at your guys' review, especially for like some of the more obscure college summer league and Division One college parks that
Yes.
there aren't as much information out
You're
there
absolutely
on.
right. You're absolutely right.
You guys have almost all of them, and so I can always get a good heads up. And then once I get to the game, I can focus on the game. I don't know that I could do what you guys do, partially because you don't need me because I live in the same region as Paul, and he's been to almost every place that I've been up here. So
Yeah, I kind of hog New England. I apologize to Matt Fiedler all the time.
But also because like I want to just sit and watch the game once the game starts. But I super appreciate having that resource, especially for small and more obscure ballparks.
We do the hard work. You're right. There's some ballparks where it's not so much for ballparks. I guess it's when I review some of the Indiana high school gyms. Nobody knows when these places were built. 1970, 1975, 10 years ago. It's like you get so many different answers, and then you can't look it up online, and you call the athletic director, they may not know. So it's good for somebody to do the hard work. Johnson City, I think their ballpark claims was built in 1956, but I think it was actually built in 1950 based on some research. So which I love. Johnson City, it was one of those smaller ballparks that I just fell in love with. Thirsty Thursday, big crowd, beautiful night. I was in heaven. I could have sat there and watched the game and not moved around, and I would have been just as happy as if I wasn't moving around and trying to go to Elizabethton to see the nightcap. So I'm with you there. Stemming back from that conversation earlier tonight.
I did almost the whole league as a single trip, and Pulaski and Johnson City and Greenville, Greenville almost seems weird because it's too nice of a stadium.
It's too nice. You're absolutely right.
Jumped in with the rest of them.
It's almost like a single A, like it could be in the Sally League.
Yeah, but I mean Burlington, Danville, Pulaski, Johnson City. I love those little ballparks.
Yeah.
So,
Paul.
Yeah, some of them. So I don't know if we ever. I think I want to put you on the spot, and Mike, tell us about some of your favorite spots that you visited, and they could be off the beaten track. Just some of the ones our listeners may be interested in hearing about.
So I mean, I'll cheat and say I've been lucky enough to get to a handful of games in Japan. My brother-in-law is in the Navy and was stationed in Japan for a couple of years, and I was able to visit once. I was really hoping to get there twice and get to more NPB games, but I was able to get to 5 NPB games and 2 NPB minor league games, and that's one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. It's just like the coordinated cheers and chanting for everything, the dances, the Yakult Swallows. All of a sudden, after a player hits a home run, everybody in the stadium pulls out a tiny little umbrella and at the same time and does a tiny little umbrella dance. And like the Chibalote Marines, they released like balloons during the 7th inning. it's just such a different atmosphere from, I mean, I guess you can say like pro soccer somewhat has that in the US and Canada, but not to the level of European pro soccer or to the level of baseball in some of the other countries. So that, and then like the Japanese minor league games, it's almost like a minor league game in the US. They had to, went to a Yokosuka DNA Bay Stars game, and they did chase the mascot across the field for the little kids, just like they do in the US. So that was really cool. I was able to go to a Tijuana Toros game, and somebody described it to me as like the reverse of the coin of Japanese baseball, where it's the chanting and cheering, but at a different level. There was scantily clad male and female cheerleaders. The mascots stay on the field during the game, taunting fans. They
taunt the fans. That should be fun.
Yeah. The music plays
just like the Mets,
right? Yeah. Well, the players taunt the fans
up until the pitcher up until the pitcher releases the ball. The music stops. The batter swings. The music comes back on. It's a whole different experience. So I would encourage everybody who hasn't seen a game outside of the US and Canada to do it if they get the chance. And that's kind of my like bucket list for what comes after I finish all the pro parks in the US and Canada, is to get to see more games in different places. I'd love to get to Korea or the Caribbean.
Oh, Korea would be fun. A lot of cheering there as well.
But I meant to use that time as to think of other parks I love in the US, and I didn't.
Yeah, you kind of transitioned into my next question is, with your resume, what's on your bucket list? And you kind of answered some of that question.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I'd like to, pandemic willing, I hopefully will be able to get to the parks that I need to get to complete the pro parks for the US and Canada next year. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? There's already a couple of new Indie League teams announced. And the Pecos League and Empire League, who knows what's going to happen with those? A bunch of teams pop up and a bunch of teams disappear. So I'm sure that'll add some things to the list.
And they play in somebody's backyard next year. They've been just announced, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, after I get through that, I want to, I'll still go through more college games. I want to get to some of the higher level college summer leagues. I went to my first Northwoods League game this year, my first Coastal Plain League game this year. There's a lot of cool ballparks in those leagues.
Where did you go in Coastal Plain?
High Point
Thomasville. Okay, so,
yeah. I went there this summer.
Finch Field, yeah.
There's a hill in the outfield. I love me a hill in the outfield.
And on the scoreboard, when the opposing team doesn't score in an inning, they put this goose on top of the scoreboard.
The goose egg.
Quebec City used to do that.
Yeah, they did that too.
The last time I was in Quebec City, they didn't do the goose egg anymore. I was kind of sad. But yeah, I would love to do. At that point, I'll be 48 states. I want to do Hawaii and Alaska. I want to do the Caribbean, and I'd love to do more international ballparks. I'd love to see Australia. I'd love to see South Korea. I'd love to see some honk ball.
Amsterdam, right? And that's Holland, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We have reviews of those too on our page.
We do.
No,
we
I
got
look at them and I dream on that.
And judging from those pictures, some of them look very obscure. I'm like, wow, that's a ballpark. Okay.
Yeah, well, they do relegation there, where some of the minor league teams end up in the highest league. So you end up with what looks like high school fields being in the major league, basically.
Imagine if they did relegation out here.
I mean,
like the Orioles would be down to single A by now.
Well, we'll force teams to get their act together.
You would hope. So, Mike, before we wrap everything up here, you want to tell our listeners a little bit about your website?
Yeah, I mean, my website is basically just a bunch of poorly taken pictures that I take of my my ballpark collection. But you can find that. And also, I mean, I post every time I go to a ballpark pictures and stuff on my Twitter, which is at In the Ballparks. The website is intheballparks.com. Yeah, if you're bored and want to look at 400 ballparks worth of pictures, I got that. I don't have the reviews that you guys have at Stadium Journey, but you can see where I've been at least.
Well, hey, nobody has the reviews that we have at Stadium Journey.
That's right.
Nobody beats us.
Just saying. So, yeah, Mike, I enjoy watching your travels, and it's kind of funny. We were kind of parallel this summer. A lot of this stuff
true.
you said you did.
Amazing.
I ended up doing the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing we've never ended up in the same place at the same time. Except apparently we were both at a UConn game this summer and didn't realize it until afterwards.
Yes, yes. The new field there. What's it called? I can't think of the name.
Elliott Ballpark.
Wow, what an improvement over there,
yeah.
over Christian Field.
Absolutely. So there are only a handful of high level college parks in New England, and now that's one of them. But
no doubt.
Yeah, no, I think I'm done for the season, other than probably I'll get to a couple of like Worcester Red Sox or Fisher Cats games. But I'm dreaming on college fall ball maybe for a couple of games, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, In the Ballparks on Twitter if you want to watch where I ramble around the country, and hopefully farther than that.
So one last question. As a New Englander, as a Red Sox fan, what's your impression of Worcester's $159 million ballpark?
It's very blue.
It sure is.
I'm getting used to it. It's different. I love McCoy Stadium. I was prepared, and I know I'm preaching to the choir about the Paw Sox, but I was prepared to sit in the stands and cry at the last Paw Sox game. And I was, part of me is relieved that they took that away from me and didn't make me suffer through that. And part of me is sad that I never got to go to a last game there. Worcester is weird. At first, I was turned off by some of it, and I've come around on a lot of it. I love a ballpark with a train. It's got a train. It's got some cool areas in the park. The scoreboard is bizarrely placed. I sat on the third base side the first game, and I couldn't see a third of the scoreboard.
Right.
But yeah, I'll get used to it. I'll grow to love it.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who borderline worship McCoy Stadium, I can't say a whole lot of negative things about Polar Park. So I really do enjoy it there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always be sad when an older ballpark goes away, but it's the thing I like the most about Worcester is it doesn't look exactly like every other brand new ballpark. There's a weird trend, and I like it because it's a good ballpark. And like I said,
this is an issue Dave's brought up. Yes.
Yeah, and it's tough because for me, as someone who's traveling around and going to all these ballparks, like, yeah, they look the same and it gets a little samey after a while. But for these people who live in this town, like they haven't been going to all these other ballparks across the country. So they get to enjoy the brand new ballpark, and they don't care that it looks kind of like the one in North Carolina or Texas or whatever. But that said, I love when a ballpark looks different, and Worcester looks different. I really liked Gastonia this summer because it looks totally different from any other new ballpark.
Oh, yeah.
It's got weird group seating areas all over the place.
Yeah.
How was the crowd at Gastonia when you went there? Because all three of us, I think, said the same thing. We love the ballpark, and it's very different than what we're used to.
Yeah. No, the crowd was okay, but I love the park. It was different. I'm super excited, honestly, to see the Lake Country Dockhounds ballpark next year because that looks super weird. There's no permanent stadium seating behind home plate. It's all tables and different levels of tables and stuff, and all the stadium seating is down the lines. So
I forgot about those guys.
Yeah, give me weird and different. I love Traverse City and Frisco because they don't look like anything else.
Traverse City.
Yeah.
That's just a fun town to be in. Yeah,
Frisco,
Traverse
another
City.
great one. Yeah.
Have not been there yet. One day. When car rentals are somewhat affordable. I love going to ballparks. I just don't feel like spending $100 a day for a hotel plus car and
that's
expenses.
that's a big reason why I didn't do the West Coast.
Yeah,
that I was thinking of for this year.
I thought about renting a car and just driving all over the country. I mean, all over the South for a little bit this year, and I saw how much I was going to rent a car. I was going to hit the Trash Pandas, go down to not Mobile, Pensacola. It's like, yeah, I guess I could wait till 2022.
Yeah, I just beat up my own car for the summer. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I guess that's where we're gonna wrap things up for today, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to pimp out your website or your Twitter account one more time for our listeners?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. You guys do a great job with your websites. Amazing resource for anybody who does the stuff we do. And your podcast is super fun too. And thank you so much for having me. Anytime you want to have me back, I'll be here. If you want to follow along where the other places I go, it's In the Ballparks on Twitter.
And Mike's a good Twitter follow. I can vouch for that one. All right, Mike, thanks for coming on again, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you, guys.
So once again, we want to thank Michael Harris from InTheBallparks.com for joining us. If any of our listeners would like to follow Dan online, you can find him at DanLaw83. Mark, where can our listeners follow you online?
You can follow me at Ballpark Hunter at Twitter, Instagram, and on my YouTube page. 551 subscribers. Let's get to 600. Won't you help me make that happen?
Ooh, I think my YouTube page has like 12 followers. Dave, where can our listeners follow you online?
Twitter and Instagram at ProFan9.
And you can follow my Stadium Journeys on Twitter or Instagram at PuckmanRI. And remember to check out our website for all of our great content. That's stadiumjourney.com. Connect with us on our social media channels from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and I think that's all for now, but that's plenty. You can find the audio versions of the Stadium Journey podcast just by searching HIAC Talk Radio Network on whatever podcast search app you use. And our video simulcast can be found on Stadium Journey's YouTube page, and our classic back catalog can still be found at vocnation.com. And join us for our live streams every other Tuesday night at 8 Eastern at twitch.tv/DanLaw83. Now, for those of you who are listening on our live stream or watching on our live stream, we'll be reviewing our recent road trips in just a couple of minutes. For those of you who are listening or watching this at a later time, check out part 2 of this week's episode, wherever you found this one. So thanks again, everyone, for listening, for watching. For Dan, Mark, and Dave, this is Paul, wishing you safe stadium journeys and close games. Hope to see you on the road real soon.